how we as a city can become leaders in sustainability. So we're really excited about this event, our Green Convene, with Bradley Coombs, who is an environmental coordinator with the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District. And he's going to talk to us about two programs, actually, the Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program and the Grow More, Mow Less program. So Bradley, you want to take it away and tell us a little bit about Lawn Care for Cleaner Air?
Sure, thanks, Michelle. Let me get my screen up here. Okay.
Working.
Yep, there we go. Okay. Hi, everybody, and thanks for attending today. Like Michelle said, my name is Bradley Coombs, and I'll be talking a little bit about a couple of programs that the Air Pollution Control District offers. First is the Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program. If you're not familiar with the Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program, essentially it's a rebate program for new electric or human-powered lawn equipment like mowers, trimmers, blowers, batteries, reel mowers. And you might be asking yourself, why make the switch to electric battery-powered equipment instead of your standard gas equipment? Well, gas-powered equipment emits a host of pollutants, including carbon monoxide, particulate matter, the different pollutants such as nitrogen oxides that cause ground level ozone. Battery powered equipment is quieter. It requires very little maintenance. Electric equipment keeps getting more affordable and more powerful. And you can see in this diagram to the right that gas powered equipment, just total emissions, the pollution coming from gas powered equipment is much higher than your cordless electric, plug-in electric, or your reel mower, which doesn't emit any sort of pollution at all. The type of equipment that you can get a rebate on through the program, looking at string trimmers, leaf blowers, mowers, the batteries that power that equipment, and reel mowers as well. So you can get a rebate when you buy any of these new pieces of equipment, but when you recycle an old piece of equipment, like if you were to recycle an old string trimmer and then purchase a new one, your rebate amount would then be doubled. There are a couple of different ways you can participate in the Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program. You can purchase your equipment and then process your rebate through the Air Pollution Control District. Essentially, you would send in the required documentation, and then we would cut you a check and then send that out to you. Or you could buy your equipment from one of our participating dealers, and you would receive your rebate at the point of sale. You can visit louisvilleky.gov/lawncare for for the rebate request form that you would need, for the list of participating dealers, also for some of the other terms of the rebate program. We do require that participants of the program be residents of Metro Louisville, Jefferson County. We do also, if you're going to recycle an older piece of equipment, we would need you to take that equipment to one of 3 different Metro recycling centers. There's one on Hubbard's Lane, 595 Hubbard's Lane. There's one on Dixie Highway. And typically the Metro Waste Reduction Center on Meriwether Avenue takes the equipment too, but they are currently closed for maintenance, and we will update our website when they reopen back up. So in addition to our regular Lawn Care for Cleaner Air program, we also have what's called Lawn Care for Cleaner Air Professional. And that essentially operates the same way as the regular program. It's just that the rebates are larger amounts because the equipment is more powerful. And the eligible equipment for that program includes trimmers, blowers, and batteries. And you don't have to be a lawn care professional to take advantage of the program. Homeowners with large yards who may need more powerful equipment can also participate. As a part of the professional program, we also have a partnership with steel manufacturing. We have a partnership with them so that participants can get even bigger rebates on the professional powered steel equipment. So that includes their commercial trimmer package, their commercial blower package, string trimmers, leaf blowers, batteries, and their that also includes their battery backpack as well. So now I'm going to throw it to Sarah Lynn for kind of a testimonial from somebody who uses this type of equipment, and just let her kind of give you her response. So take it away, Sarah Lynn.
And Sarah Lynn, I just wanted to let you know there's a poll going up for everybody while you're talking.
Cool, great, thank you. So thank you, Bradley. You know, I have some experience with the program as far as actually using it. The yard boy, also known as my partner, does that part. But when it came time, so I should say the backstory is that for the last 18 years, I lived in a place with less than 1/13 of an acre, and it was completely landscaped, so I didn't ever mow any grass. But my partner had 30 acres, about 1/4 of it which had to be mowed. So when we went to find a new place, we compromised with a house that has 1/4 of an acre, which is a lot in the Highlands, but it meant we had to get a mower. So I'm like, oh, what are we gonna do? So here's what we did. I researched consumer reports about electric lawnmowers, and I concluded that we needed something on the order of a 40-watt machine, that we didn't have to buy the really big one to do 1/4 of an acre. Then I went on to APCD's, Bradley's list of participating consumers, and I cross-referenced the mowers that we like the most based on Consumer Reports evaluation with what was being sold by the participating vendors here in Louisville. Then we took Don's old gas-powered mower to the Hubbard's Lane Recycling Center and turned it in and got a paper that documented we had done that. Then we went, I must admit, to Home Depot. I was hoping to buy it from a local owned vendor, but they didn't have the one that we wanted. So we went there, and turns out there was a factory rep there that Saturday. So we picked his brains and became very clear this was the machine we wanted. We bought it. It's amazing to me how lightweight it is. I would never expect to be able to lift up a gas-powered mower by myself, but this thing I could if I wanted to. Loaded it up, took it home, and indeed we were able, or Don, I should say, was able to mow the 1/4 acre, not counting the house, with one charge of the battery, which I thought was really cool. Anyway, I mailed in the documentation for the old mower, the request for rebate form, and the copy of the receipt. In short order, we got a check for $100. I especially like that it's quiet, and I especially like that we don't have to have gasoline sitting in the garage, because this house garage is underneath the house, and I just don't want gas fumes in the house. Great. So that's the short version.
Thanks, Sarah Lynn.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Lynn. Okay, well, now I'll spend just a couple of minutes talking about the sister program to Lawn Care for Cleaner Air, and that is Grow More, Mow Less. And this program seeks to reduce air pollution through lawn maintenance, but in a different way. This isn't really about mowing. This is about replacing the traditional turf grass that you might have in your yard with plant material that doesn't require as much or no mowing. So we're talking about trees, shrubs, alternative land covers, raised beds, wildflowers, really anything that you can plant instead of turf grass that just isn't going to require mowing. And besides the air pollution that mowing lawns is responsible for, lawns are just incredibly resource intensive in a lot of different ways. So in the United States, we use about 63,000 square miles just for lawns and traditional turf grass lawns. That's about the size of the state of Texas. It takes about 9 billion gallons of water to water all of that grass a day. Approximately 800 million gallons of fuel is burned to mow all that grass. And then while you're actually filling the lawnmowers with fuel, people spill about 17 million gallons of gas every year. So on the Grow More, Mow Less website, we have a huge list of resources here for what types of plants to plant where and what works best in what soil, and just all kinds of resources from trees to native plants to Kentucky to native grasses and wildflowers. So it's a pretty extensive list of resources about what you need to get started. And so growing more and mowing less can mean different things in different contexts. So this slide here shows, just starting with this picture in the bottom right-hand corner, it shows, a shotgun home with kind of a small yard with that kind of classic, like that kind of old Louisville or traditional or old Highlands or Crescent Hill or Clifton, that slope of the grass toward the sidewalk there. And what these people have done is just put in like a ground cover instead of grass, so you don't have to mow that patch. The picture above it is like a large corporate campus, and what they've planted there is like a tall prairie grass that really only needs to be mowed a couple of times a year. That middle picture there is a very long row of flowers that's been planted roadside. So that strip doesn't need to be mowed nearly as much as, if it was just a regular grass strip. Above that, you'll see a parking lot with little islands of trees, and can't really tell what's growing there, but I can tell it's not really grass. So that doesn't need to be mowed. And then over to the left, just along a sidewalk path there, there's a ground cover, and that's just another example of a plant material that doesn't need mowed like traditional grass. We'd also like you to consider visiting the Grow More, Mow Less Facebook page. It's a great place to go and learn about what we've got going on, what our different partners have going on. And it's a place where people can post pictures of their own yard. That's what this picture is on the right-hand side. It was just somebody on the page sharing pictures of their yard so people can come and get inspiration for what they can do in their own space. So that's what I have today, and here again is just a list of the resources I've shared previously about our Lawn Care for Cleaner Air and Grow More, Mow Less programs and how you can get a hold of us. So at this time, I will stop sharing my screen, and we will, I guess, who's next?
All right. Well, thanks, Bradley. I'll take it from there. Just take a quick second to transition here. Next up, we're going to be treated to a video tour through Margaret Carrero's native plants yard. Margaret is a professor emerita of biology at the University of Louisville, and is just a wealth of knowledge about the native plants that you're going to learn a little bit about now. Sarah Lynn has taken a crash course in video production here, and so she's going to pilot us through this video. I'll let people know there's a little variation in the audio. So if it drops to be a little bit quieter for a minute or two, don't worry, that video's sound will come right back up and shouldn't miss a thing. So Sarah Lynn, you want to launch that? And I'll give folks a heads up that you'll see a couple of polls through the course of this segment too. So be ready to give us some feedback there. Sarah Lynn?
Michelle, do you turn it over to me or do I need to grab it?
You got it.
Okay, thank you. Folks, I have listed the common and scientific name of the various blooming native wildflowers in this video. So if you're looking for ideas of plants you might want to plant in your garden, be sure to grab a paper and pencil. And I tried to hold the names up long enough for you to be able to jot them down.
And you'll be able to visit those videos again because they're posted on the Louisville Climate Action Network website.
I can't believe I forgot to bring that up. So if you go to the LCAN website, which is louisvillecan.org, and click on Take Action and then Simple Steps, if you scroll down, you get to the gardening page, which I haven't finished building, but will this afternoon, the landscaping page, but also you can go to the videos page, and that's where we have these videos. So if you want to go back and review the names of something, you can. All right, back on to the film. This is not the one I want up. One moment, please. Okay, let's roll them.
I'm Margaret Carrero.
You got to share your screen, Sarah Lynn.
Oh, sorry. Right. I do know what I'm doing. I just don't act like it, do I? And now I need to click here. Now everybody can see it, right?
Yes.
This is my first time doing this, y'all. Here we go.
I'm Margaret Carrero, and I'm a biology teacher who's had a long-term interest in gardening and native plants. I actually started in the backyard because it's a more private space, and if you're going to experiment, sometimes it's easier for your neighbors and yourself to experiment in the backyard rather than the front yard. So why don't you follow me out to my backyard? Well, this side is where I have my herb garden because I really can't live without all my herbs cooking. But as you see, it's transitioning to where there was the original Japanese maple, and then all these plants you're seeing now are native flowering plants. At least 95% of them are. And as it continues here, this long section, where this dogwood tree is, I took advantage of shade to have a shade garden that is all native plants. Behind here in the shade is lemon balm with a wonderful fragrance. I just love it. Well, this section of my garden, which will be in riotous bloom sometime in June and July, is the section of my garden where I have a lot of prairie plants. And you might say, prairie plants? Why would you grow prairie plants in your garden? Well, it's because I have really bad soil. What the nice thing about a lot of native plants is they really don't want rich soil. And they can take clay, especially these prairie plants, which once they get going, make the longest roots, break up that clay, and make good soil down there after a few years. So here's where I have a section of the garden where the soil is the poorest. It is a hard-packed clay, which I know just about everybody in Louisville knows about, but also has the added problem of a lot of rocks and a chalk layer in some sections that is about 5 inches thick, about a foot down, and it can kill some of my plants, I've discovered through trial and error. Considering the soil and what kind of soil you have is the second most important factor after what kind of sun and light you have in choosing which plants to grow, particularly native plants. So what you're seeing here right now is my 3-year-old trumpet or coral honeysuckle, which is blooming great guns right now. I'm so pleased. And it's just ready and waiting to entice the hummingbirds, which should be arriving very soon. That's the nice thing about native plants. They bloom in time for the birds that are migrating and for butterflies and other things when they're migrating. Well, here is a coral honeysuckle, but the yellow variety. It's only 1 year old. It's kind of thin and looking kind of mangy at the moment, but it will get as thick or thicker than that other one you just saw. But I chose the yellow because I really thought this yellow would look great with the blue flowers of this native Amsonia. I just like the color combination. Well, here is the shade end of my garden, and it is filled with native plants that are commonly seen in our forest woodlands in the forest floor. This plant, which is just starting to bloom, is called the great waterleaf. It is one of my favorites. It will naturalize in your garden. That means it will reseed, and it'll probably reseed where it wants to, but it's easy enough for you to transplant it where you'd like later, and it blooms in its second year, but makes lovely foliage. Over here, you see our wild geranium, and I have a lot of it in my garden, and it's one of my favorites. It brings in lots of bees. Here, as a great ground cover in a shade garden, is wild ginger. Now this one, to see the flowers, you have to get pretty up close and personal. With wild ginger, you have to work a little bit. You got to look under the leaves for the flowers. They are ant and fly pollinated, not bee pollinated, but they have a pretty geometry inside that I just love taking photographs of. Next to this patch of wild ginger, there's one of my favorites, our wood poppy or celandine poppy. It also is a great naturalizer, and I just love it in the garden. It pops up in all kinds of places, and sometimes you say, hey, that was a better decision than I could have made. Really great things, I think, of flowering plants, even when they're not flowering, is that they have such distinctive and different foliage. And just the foliage itself is so interesting. The patterns, the shapes, the texture and colors. And you can see that there are various ones here, from ferns to other plants. But look at this umbrella one, and I bet you most of you recognize this plant, this umbrella-looking plant. Whenever it makes 2 leaves, take a peek underneath, and you'll see the prize, the mayapple flower blooming. It's just beautiful. But you have to, again, got to look under the leaves. What you're looking at right now are the blossoms of wild geranium just starting to open. There'll be more later. And right next to them are one of my favorites, the dwarf crested iris. It becomes a beautiful ground cover at this time of year when it blooms, but the leaves stay all year, except winter. And you can see that it can grow in patches. One of the things about having a natural garden is that you can start off planting things where you want them, but plants will sometimes tell you where they'd rather be. They will reseed in areas where they'll do better and become more natural looking. They are interdigitating, you can see. Nature does not plant in rows. So you can start off putting them and suggesting where you'd like them to be, but kind of roll with it sometimes, where they wind up telling you where they'd rather be, and they look so beautiful when they grow in with each other. Right here you see the last remaining blooms of my Virginia bluebells. Not only are these beautiful to my eye, and I value them for their beauty, but they are exceptionally important for pollinator bees, like our native bumblebees that come out very early in spring, hungry, looking for flowers. So the shade garden here gives me an opportunity to provide the very species of plants and flowers that our native pollinator bees will need first thing in spring. Some other plants I have to give a little interest here is Jack in the pulpit. You can see Jack in his pulpit, and this is a fly pollinated flower. And over here you can see the first blooms of sweet Cicely. It's a woodland plant in our forests. And a trillium. I love this particular trillium. It's so big and beautiful red flowers. And trillium, of course, means in 3 parts. And you can see 3 leaves and 3 petals. On the patio section of my garden, I have 3 plants of the stunning, I think, eastern shooting stars. And bumblebees really like them too. So in this spring garden, and that's more of a shade garden, what you may have also noticed is that all these flowers are out early, which feeds the pollinators, but not only that, they have come in different colors and very different shapes. For example, there was the Virginia bluebell with those bell-like flowers that force certain pollinators to really dig for that nectar down deep. And there's ones that are yellow and white. That's because different bees and bead-like flies, syrphid flies, and butterflies even, are attracted to different colors and different shapes of flowers. So that's one of the goals when you're setting up a native garden, is to try to provide variety that doesn't just please your eye, but can please set the dinner table for all these different pollinators with different colors and different shapes of flowers that different ones prefer. Well, I hope this view of my backyard garden has given you some ideas about your own garden. But I know you may think this just sprouted up yesterday. It didn't. This was 15 years in the making, and I chose, however, to do a large garden to begin with. You don't have to, especially if you're not as knowledgeable or comfortable starting out replacing lawn or with native plants or vegetables, etc. Just start small. It can be a 10 by 10 foot patch where you're experimenting. Don't be afraid to experiment. And don't be afraid to fail sometimes. And any gardener already knows that. So what I'd like to do now is welcome you all back in a few months' time so you can see the rest of the garden out there as it has changed. You will see an incredible difference. It'll be in riotous bloom, as I said earlier. And so I do hope you'll come back.
That's wonderful. Sarah Lynn also has 3 other shorter clip videos, and we're going to put a poll up right now so that you all can help us decide which one you all would like to see. Get that poll going. Was really excited to hear this morning, Margaret, that that freeze didn't do too much damage in your garden.
I still have to go out and look at the details, but overall, I think it only got down to 30. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I was too. I brought some of my garden inside with me today to share on our webcast here.
I think a lot of us did that last night. Might as well enjoy the blooms inside if they're going to get hit outside.
That's very true.
And I was going to add that I wore a mask and stayed at least 6 foot away from Margaret, and that's why I had her to wear that amplifier. So I just wanted everybody to know that we were doing our best to maintain proper quarantine procedures.
All right, Sarah Lynn, it looks like people are interested in easy ways to help pollinators. Pull up that clip?
Yes, I will. Just a sec here.
That's a good one.
It's a pretty one, but they're all pretty.
Oh yeah, that's a given.
I guess I need to share again, don't I?
Yes.
I'm gonna get used to this one of these days. Okay. The pole's in my way. Get out of the way, pole. There we go.
So now what I like to do is to give you some additional tips in how you can manage your garden space to make it more friendly for the other needs of our pollinator friends, and not just to provide nectar and pollen for them, but they need a nursery. So here's one way that you can make your garden friendlier for that purpose. To leave the woody stems of certain plants, like the coneflower you see here, cut them back to within, say, 18 to 24 inches from the soil and leave them standing. And there's a certain little tiny bee that actually uses the cut surfaces and drills holes in them and then lays eggs from the bottom up and feed them, leave them little pollen gifts. And then about a month later, their babies will emerge. Another thing you can consider doing is leaving the leaves in the autumn when your leaves fall, or maybe just raking them to a certain area at a depth of no more than 6 inches, because that's fertilizer. That's free fertilizer, that's free mulch. It feeds the soil, it feeds the decomposers in the soil, and also is the home to overwintering home of a lot of butterfly and moth chrysalises. They emerge in the spring, like the comma. Have you ever heard of the comma butterfly and the question mark butterfly? The third yard management practice you can consider is not mulching every place in the soil, leaving some of the soil bare. That's because most of our bee pollinators nest in the soil. They dig little holes and nest down in the soil. Some of them are just solitary bees, and some of them are bumblebees that make small colonies of about 50 to 100 bees, but they live in the soil. That's where their nests are. So leave some spaces that aren't covered with leaves or mulch for them to potentially nest in.
That's great. Those are great tips. They also make me feel a little bit better about not having to get out there and get every one of those leaves up out of the yard at the end of the season. Those are, I like that. They're free fertilizer. Hey, yeah. Well, and that's a great transition. Talk about where all those leaves might come from. So we have Cindy Sullivan, who's the Executive Director of Trees Louisville, and she's going to tell us more about trees and planting and care. Trees are a great way to grow more, mow less. Cindy, can you take it away?
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm going to apologize right off the bat because I am a fossil and I have a really hard time with this stuff. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you guys will be able to.
Personally, I decorate my garden with fossils all the time, so you're in the right place.
Let me get these things out of the way. And here's my polling question. We want to know if you've planted a tree. I'm just going to kind of go through our website. Charlotte Jones is our office and program manager, and she does such a great job with this website. It's got tons and tons of information. And we talk a lot about, again, Trees Louisville is a nonprofit organization, and our goal is to improve the canopy in Louisville. And we talk a lot about the ecosystem services that trees provide. But one of the things that I think that we need to keep in the top of our minds is trees are really good for social cohesion. For instance, if you plant a nice shade tree that is in a south or west exposure that will shade your front porch, you're much more likely to be out there on your front porch talking to your neighbors. And so I really think that social cohesion aspect of a robust tree canopy is really, really important in addition to all the ecosystem services that they provide. So we use a couple of very important tools to inform our work.
Don't forget to share your screen.
Oh, shoot. Am I not doing that? Doggone it.
Pretty excited to see how many people on our webinar today have planted trees in the last year. You go.
Oh my gosh, 84%. All right, let me see if I can get this back up here. Zoom. Now I can't find myself.
Go to the bottom.
Go to the bottom.
The green share screen button.
Yeah, you know what? It disappeared on me. Now all I see is Zoom.
Julia, can you do it for her?
That would be awesome.
I know we can't because she has
not.
Okay.
All right, wait a
you
minute.
hover your mouse over the bottom of the Zoom screen, that control should pop back up.
Hover your mouse over the bottom of the Zoom screen. It's not popping back up.
What if she exits full screen? Then would it show that better?
So I see Sarah Lynn. Oh, come on, Cindy. See, I told you I was a fossil.
Look at your upper right-hand corner.
Here we go. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So do you have to?
Get out of full screen.
Yeah.
It is full screen now?
No, get out of it. Look in your upper right-hand corner. Does it say exit full screen?
Exit full screen. Oh, this guy? Enter full screen or exit full? Ah,
Exit, and now look at the bottom. Do you see a green share screen button?
Yep.
Over the mouse. Yeah.
Click it.
I'm clicking away on that thing.
And then it'll show you what screens you have open. So choose the one with your website and
Right.
then click share.
Ugh.
I tell you what, I can bring up, let me bring up the website and I will do the tour while you talk.
Good idea.
Dagnabbit. Sorry, guys. I'm such a,
Everybody's got to be a beginner at some point.
yeah, right. Okay, so back to what informs our work, because I don't want to take up a whole lot of time here trying to get myself going. We use the 2015 Urban Tree Canopy Assessment to determine, that was a study that was done that looked at tree canopy in 2004, 2008, and 2012. And it showed an alarming loss of tree canopy throughout the county. And it is such a detailed study that it actually gives us neighborhood by neighborhood, low canopy areas. So we use that tool, and we also use the 2016 heat management study. That was a study that was done by Dr. Brian Stone at Georgia Tech, and again gives us very detailed, granular information about the hottest places in our community. And so that's where we tend to do the bulk of our work, that we raise the money to be able to plant trees in those areas. And both of those studies can be found at louisvilleky.gov. All you have to do is just do a search on the website, and they both of those studies are there complete that you can read. I'm happy to say that Trees Louisville is partnering with Louisville Metro in order to be able to update our information. Again, it's 2012 that we have the last information about our tree canopy, and we're going to work with the University of Vermont, the Spatial Analysis Lab, to look at the change in canopy from 2012 to 2018. We're going to get that done hopefully this summer, so we'll have that information by this fall. So we're really excited about getting that information updated. I want to pull up, Michelle, if you can, oh, here we go. So if I just do share screen, I can see mulching. I can see some of this stuff.
If you want to share your screen, I'll stop sharing mine.
Okay. It looks like I can, right? So, all right, anyway, can you guys see this?
No.
Oh, shucks. Okay, never mind, Michelle. If you can pull up mapping, if you go to the tab, Michelle, that's the blog, it's about 3 or 4 down.
Ah.
One of the things that drives us is this redlining map. I'm sure that you guys are probably familiar with redlining. It is 1930s procedures that rated our community. And we can look now at those 1930s redlining maps where neighborhoods were graded either first or second or third or fourth grade. And the fourth grade neighborhoods were redlined. They were deemed not worthy of investment. We can look at those today, and the tree canopy in those areas is 22% versus the green lined areas that we see now are 49%. So we are making up for decades and decades of disinvestment in this community, and that really drives us. So what we want to talk about is getting you involved in tree planting, and I'm happy to see that there are so many people that are planting trees and have planted a tree in the last year. So that's awesome. So what we do, there are basically 3 different ways to be able to plant a tree. Okay, you can do that either balled and burlapped, or you can do it with a bare root tree or a containerized tree. And they both have pros and cons. Bare root trees are usually heavier, harder to plant because they've got that whole root system. Did I say bare root? I meant balled and burlap. Balled and burlap trees are usually a little bit more difficult, but and bare root trees are a little easier, but you cannot let those root systems dry out. The easiest way to plant a tree usually is from a container, because they've got an existing root system and they could be planted pretty much any time of the year as long as you're making sure that you're watering. So those are kind of some different ways to determine what's going to suit you best. And there's also, this is a little talk about threes. There's 3 different sizes of trees that we will tend to rate. Trees Louisville usually goes with canopy trees. Those are type A's. Those are really the ones that are going to be the largest. And size B trees, class B trees are trees that are sort of medium sized, somewhere between 25 and 40 feet at maturity. And then there's class C trees that are the smaller trees that if you want to look back at Margaret's garden, the Japanese maple, the dogwoods, those types of trees. So again, that's a good way to be able to pick your trees. And if you look at our website, you'll see some of our favorites that we go through. And again, let me see, there is a, we do have a voucher, right? So if you want to go out and purchase a tree, save your receipt, go to our website, and you can just click on voucher on there, and we will send you a rebate of up to $80 to cover 40% of the cost of that tree. So 40% of the tree you'll get back from us. That's a partnership, again, that we have with Louisville Metro. So that's a really good way to get some great savings. And if you're going to a garden center that's having a sale already on trees, then you can get as much as 60 or 70% off the cost of a tree between those 2 discounts. So that's one of the things that we really want to encourage you to do, is take advantage of our tree bait. And another kind of fun, cool thing that we've got on our website is a tree tag. And you can access that. It's a really fun kind of family activity that just takes some simple tools and an internet connection so that you can go through and do the calculations. The tree tag, you can print it off of the website. You measure the size of the tree, you determine the species, and then you can determine the ecosystem services that that tree provides and hang that tag on your tree so that you can share that information with your neighbors. So we really think that that's really kind of a fun way to be able to determine how valuable your trees are. The website is treebenefits.com/calculator, and it is again, very easily accessible. All you have to do is just put your zip code in, and it'll give you tree values as you go along. And then caring for trees, because everybody knows you can't just plant a tree, you have to make sure that you're caring for it properly. So again, you're going to find lots of information about pruning and mulching on our website. Keep in mind that pruning is a stimulant. People are sometimes really afraid to look at a tree with pruners in their hands and start cutting. But if you just keep a couple of basic things in mind when you're pruning, then it's pretty easy. Step back and take a look at the tree, remove any of the branches that are crossing over each other or rubbing against each other, remove any that are damaged or or dead, of course. And then also you can then step back again, and you can then you can kind of do some tip cutting if it's in the way. There's an old nursery adage that the best way to prune is if it's in the way, you just take it out. So pruning is very important. Mulching is your tree's best friend as well. Keep in mind, again, that 3x3 rule. The way to mulch a tree is to have at least 3 feet in diameter around the trunk, at least 3 inches deep, but you also want to have that mulch at least 3 inches away from the trunk of the tree. You don't want that mulch volcanoed up and around the trunk, because that will create an opportunity for rodents or disease or insect to get into the trunk of the tree. So that's a really good visual that we've got on the website for properly mulching. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I did not say that it's very important to make sure that you get involved. You either plant your own tree. If you'd like to be involved with Trees Louisville, we've got lots of opportunities for volunteers to come and help us plant trees. It's called our Canopy Core program, and Rob Monsma's done a great job with that one. And also, of course, we are a nonprofit organization, so if you want to donate, feel free. So I'm going to let you take it back, and I apologize again for not being able to get my video up there. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Yeah, no problem. I think I hit most of the spots that you were looking at, so thanks for bearing with me all. And we're a few minutes behind on our agenda, but we've got one more great presentation before we start. We'll do a little bit of a wrap up of our main program, and then we'll start our Q&A. So I think, we've got lots more to bring you. So without further ado, I want to introduce Karen Maynard. She is our, oh, I'm sorry. Actually, we do have one more piece before we get to our composting. So Karen, hold tight just one second. I want to first give Sarah Lynn Cunningham the opportunity to bring a few tips and thoughts about solar panels and trees and some siting considerations from the LCAN perspective. So Sarah Lynn.
Thank you. And this time, I think it's going to go more smoothly. There we go. Sorry, meaning myself. One big idea I want to get people thinking about, and it's kind of complicated, but if your roof is oriented towards the sun and has the sort of architecture that would render it ideal for solar panels, I would want you to be careful not to plant the types of trees that are going to get so tall that they would cover up your solar panels, because even though they're generally warranted for 20 to 25 years, they're expected to be productive for 50, and trees can get pretty tall in 50 years. So this is, for my current house, this is, I wanted you to look at these 2 diagrams below. If a whole lot of houses in Louisville have hip roofs where all 4 faces of the roof are a triangle, our current house is more of a modified hip roof. So we've got a trapezoidal section facing pretty much south, and then we have a triangular section facing southwest. So we were able to put solar panels there, but if we had only these triangular faces, it would have restricted how many we could have put on there. And the prairie style of this architecture gave us more space. So, the ideal, of course, would be a perfectly south-facing shed roof that was completely flat, and they hardly exist in Louisville. So anyway, if you think you might want to do solar, then I would have your roof evaluated to make sure that that's an option for you, even if you weren't ready to do the work. And then that way you would make sure to choose the proper species.
Yeah, and I think that those, going back to the Trees Louisville website, those B and C trees might be the types of trees that you would want to choose in those spaces, and leave the A trees for the other areas.
Correct, exactly.
Right. And of course, if you aren't able to put solar panels on your roof.
Oof.
Another consideration for your trees would be to plant trees where they, in those south sides of your home, where those deciduous trees could leaf out and provide shade through the summer months. And then that is an energy efficiency strategy for your home. A lot fewer cooling bills for you if you have the right tree in the right spot. So trees, they just really work hard for us all year round. So thank you for bringing those perspectives. So Karen, now I'm going to toss it over to you. Karen is Public Education Supervisor with Louisville Metro Department of Public Works, the Solid Waste District, and is going to tell us about backyard composting. Karen.
Hi, thank you, Michelle, and thanks for having me join on this panel. And I'm going to be sharing my screen, and while I pull that up, I think there's a poll question coming, maybe. Just asking if you already compost at home. Be interesting to see. Well, looks like a lot of you do. That's good. There we go. And I think, very good. Looks like a lot of you compost at home. So I'm going to kind of go over some of the basics. So you may already know this, but you know, once you learn the basics, there's not really a completely wrong or right way to do it. It's kind of what works for you as long as you follow the basic rules of you know, to not attract pests and to keep the right mix. So we'll go over that. I'm gonna get rid of the poll. Okay, so just making sure I am hitting the right buttons here. Hang on.
We have a lot of composters.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so there we go. Might go too far, but I wanted to share a couple of facts from our 2018 solid waste study. If you're interested in that, it's a pretty lengthy document, but it is on our website, Public Works website, or our new waste district website. You can get to that with louisvillewastedistrict.org. But in Louisville, we trash over 85,000 tons of food per year. And out of everything we put in a local landfill, 26% could have been composted. Now, maybe not composted in your backyard, but that's a way to start to make an individual difference. So why compost? It reduces greenhouse gas emissions, which Sarah Lynn will talk a little bit more after this, and conserves valuable landfill space. And it gives your plants and soil more nutrients when you use it. And why not? It's pretty easy. And so I'm going to kind of go over some of the basics, like I mentioned. You, of course, want to reduce your food waste first, so try not to have the waste in the first place. But we all have that food scraps and even some lawn waste that maybe we've you know, raked up or whatever. So it's a way to use it. And so the first thing to do is choose your design. And I've got a few pictures here. There's a couple types of tumblers. Those are kind of nice because you can sort of just flip them to get them turned, maybe a little less labor. That second one is actually Margaret's that she sent me a picture of, a dual one. So one can be going, kind of cooking, I guess, at the same time while you add to the other one. And then the third one, it's just a stock photo, but reminder, when you do put your food scraps in there, make sure you turn that in. Don't leave it out in the open like that if you have an open top bin. You don't want to just invite animals to come eat off the top. And then my bin is there, and you'll see some videos of that. I have the Earth Machine composter. That's the kind our waste district sells. We still have some left over from an old truckload sale years ago that I went before my time as staff. And I have plans to do another truckload sale. I'm hoping next month would be the pickup date, but I can't officially announce it, so be on the lookout for that. Next, you're gonna choose your location. I just found this picture of one in the snow because you want it to be convenient, because there's gonna be times where you might not really wanna go out and put your compost into your bin or turn it. So just kind of keep that in mind as you choose. Don't put it too far off the beaten path where you give up on it later. And make sure you have plenty of space to maneuver around it. And then you just start composting. So this is the basic chart of what you're gonna put in there. You want one part of your greens, and that's kind of your icky waste that's kind of more wet. And so all those vegetable and fruit scraps that you might have in your kitchen, if you have grass clippings you want to add, coffee grounds and tea bags. And in my case, I do have animal manure. I have chickens and my daughter has a rabbit. So I put all of that in there as well, and any more fresh leaves that you could add. So that's your one part. And actually you want twice as much of the brown material. So you can add newspaper, cardboard, any kind of branches or twigs, straw, hay, even bread, rice, pasta that is plain, no oils or anything on it, and eggshells as well. And then there's the list of non-compostable items. So don't put any meat or bones, other kinds of your pet manure, diseased plants, and even seeds from weeds and things you don't want to grow. So all of that is mainly because this is backyard composting. It's small. It's not like an industrial system that gets much hotter to kill the bad bacteria and kill those seeds and stuff. So actually just keep that stuff out of it. And I find that the greens are really easy to get. And it takes a little more work to put in those browns. So sometimes it's a good idea to just keep some, maybe some dried leaves from the fall, just keep them in a bucket or something near the composter. And every time you add your fruit and vegetable scraps, you can throw in some of the brown part too while you're at it. All right. So once you kind of know what to put in it, you basically just, and you're starting to add, you want to maintain it. And there's just 3 things. So water, oxygen, and heat are all you need. And actually, for the most part, the water can come from the material that you put in it. So I've never just taken the hose or rain, if it's open, then the rain will get in, but I've never really added water to mine. It just stays moist and you can just watch it. Like I said, that's like after I dumped that, that's what it looked like. So that's pretty fresh material there. So there's a lot of water in that. And then oxygen. So to get the oxygen in the bin, you just need to turn the compost. So mine has that open top, or I take off the top and I use a shovel or the pitchfork kind of tool there to mix it up. And so that's a little more labor. So if that looks like something you never want to do, consider the tumbler design. But this is how you're going to add oxygen. All right, and the last thing you need is heat. And basically just the proper ingredients creates that heat on its own. So 1 part green to the 2 parts brown gives you the heat that you need. All right, and then you can just use your compost. So on this design, I keep adding to the top and keep mixing it, and down at the bottom, there's a little door and you can scoop out what has been made. And those are my chickens trying to eat all the little bugs that are in there. And so I hadn't done that in a while. So full disclosure, I had my husband help me get that kind of turned again. And it's kind of, composting's a little bit, you get out of it whatever you put into it. And if you're like me, I'm a little bit of a lazy composter, so it might take a little longer for it to be usable, but that's okay. And let's see. I've done some workshops before, and here's just some questions that come up a lot. Some people ask, should I chop up my ingredients? You don't have to, but anything that you put in there, the smaller it is, it'll just process faster. So I've noticed when I clean out the bunny cage, I put the newspaper in there and I started kind of tearing it a little bit before I put it in, just because it helps it speed up the process along a little bit. What if my food scraps are moldy? That's okay. That just means that the process has already begun. How often should I turn it? People often wonder that. Again, I'm kind of lazy about it, but it's up to you. Adding the oxygen helps the process move along. So if you aren't too concerned about how long it takes for your compost to be ready to use, then you don't have to be worried about it. If you really want it for your garden, you may want to continue turning that each time you add, or maybe once a week. What happens in the winter? It naturally slows down because of cooler temperatures. Again, heat, it helps the process along. So, but it doesn't mean it's not happening, it's just slower. Sometimes people are concerned about smells or pests. The smell, really, if you have a bad smell, that probably means that you've put something wrong in your bin, or too much of the green, so the wrong mix of ingredients. Otherwise, it shouldn't be smelly at all. It should just kind of smell like a forest floor after a rain. And then pests can happen, especially in the city, and you just kind of have to monitor that. I find the more you are out there with it, the less likely you're going to get pests finding it. Also, keeping it covered and mixed well, you shouldn't have any problems. And a quick tip, especially as we move into warm weather, if you keep kitchen scraps, a bucket going or something on your kitchen counter, that's great, but it sometimes fruit flies start forming. So to prevent that, you can actually keep a little bucket inside your freezer and then add your scraps in the freezer as you go along until you're ready to move it out to the bin. I now I got a gift of a nice little compost thing that can helps keep that from happening. So that was a nice Christmas gift. But if you don't, you can use any kind of, even a Ziploc bag or an old container from something else, just reuse and keep it in the freezer. Now, you may not want to compost, or you may not have the space. So another option, which I was reminded by a couple of our panelists that use this, is the Louisville Compost Co-op. And they'll come to you, they'll provide you a bucket and come to you and collect your compost. So there's a fee, a monthly fee, and that seems to be a pretty good service if you don't have the option of composting at home. So thank you very much, and I'm going to turn it back over, I think, to Sarah Lynn.
Sarah Lynn, you have some greenhouse gas and composting thoughts.
Yeah, and I don't really know when it's supposed to be me talking rather than the screen, what do I do?
If you're talking, you just get to talk. You don't have to worry about your screen at all.
All right. So now I got to get this out of my way so I can focus. Thank you. So I wanted to say that I think composting is a really important thing to do in your garden, because it means that you're not putting waste out for the city to pick up in a big truck and haul to the landfill. The landfill is a really big generator of greenhouse gases. We want to keep things that can rot out of the landfill. Composting in your backyard prevents that, but it also, once you apply the compost onto your garden or your landscaping beds, reduces the need for you to buy synthetic fertilizers, which require really large quantities of fossil fuels to make. So there's a double benefit there. And I could get into some more of the gory details, but what I've decided to do was, and I have this great book called The Climate Conscious Gardener, which is just full of excruciatingly detailed, nerdy information about this stuff. So if you wanted to read it, great, but instead, before the day's up, I will have finished building a website, or rather a web page, excuse me, that will summarize the content of the book on the top tips for having a garden or a landscape with a smaller carbon footprint. But composting is one of the really big ones.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah Lynn. There's some really amazing resources on Louisville Climate Action Network's website. So just want to underscore gratitude, first of all, to you, Sarah Lynn, for putting all that together. But those resources are available. So the things that we've talked about today, you'll have a chance to go back and check those out. The Louisville Sustainability Council Green Convene webpage for this event will have links to all of these organizations so that you can go explore those web resources. And right now I'm going to take the opportunity to turn this over to Julia Murray, who is going to kind of wrap up this part of the program. And I see that we already have some questions in our Q&A chat, so I'll just remind you all, so keep adding some more so that we can move into that discussion portion and give our panelists some questions. So before we move into the Q&A, Julia, can you kind of bring this all together for us?
Definitely. I just want to thank everyone again for being here. This was really cool for us. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Like Michelle said, please, any questions you have for any of our panelists, just throw it in the chat box. I'm also going to pose the question, what topic would you like to see for the next Green Convene? We want to offer events that the community cares about and wants to see. So if you have any ideas for our next event topic, please let us know privately or in the public chat. But I just wanted to share my screen real quick and take you to the LSC website. So this is Louisville Sustainability Council. First, let me just show you under programs. If you go click right here, it'll take you to our Green Convene webpage. It's thinking about it here. Here we go. We are recording this Zoom session, so this will get uploaded, but if you just come here and want to go to any of the resources talked about, you can access them all here. Also, if you want to get some yard inspiration from your community, this is a great spot. But to kind of tie all this together, and the inspiration for this Green Convene was the Louisville Sustainability Council's new Do Something Green campaign. So if you come to LouisvilleSustainabilityCouncil.com or .org, either one works, on our homepage, you will see the Do Something Green campaign. And so it's a two-part campaign. The first part is an online pledging system for the community to pledge any green commitment you would like to continue doing or pledge to do. So if you click that, it'll come down. It's a very simple form to fill out: name, email, and your green commitment. And you can pledge. We're at 48 pledges right now. We're going to be tracking the emission reduction with Louisville Metro as well. And if you need some inspiration on what to pledge, you're not sure, you can come on down here. These are the most recent community pledges made. Lots of good ones: eating less meat, reducing single-use plastics, going car-free. There's so many options. And if you would like to make some green change but aren't sure how, you can head over to our resource library, which is always being updated. And I always like to tell people, if there is a resource that you would like to be connected to but you don't see listed, shoot us an email. So that's right here. You click it and it'll pop up an email. But let's just stick with individual for right now. It's broken down into individual, household, and business resources. And then it's further categorized into transportation. Lots of transportation options in the city, waste and recycling. Now this is all local for Louisville, Kentucky. Buying local, and then there's more. And so same thing in household and business. Some are repeats, but some are specific to the category. So I just encourage everyone to hop on the website, take a look, get some ideas on how you can go green today. Start small. You just got to start with one thing: recycle your Coke can, and go from there. And we will have a community forum going live soon as well for community members to share their pledge, ask questions, post resources, before and after, all that good stuff. So head over to LouisvilleSustainabilityCouncil.com, take a pledge, and check out our resources. And again, thank you so much for being here. This was really awesome.
Excellent. Thank you, Julia. So I just want to make sure to once again thank all of our panelists and their organizations for all the information that they're here sharing with us today. Thank Louisville Climate Action Network for being such a great collaborator on today's event, and hope that we'll come together and bring you more of these. So again, as Julia said, please put some ideas in that chat box for next Green Convene topics, and I think we can move into some questions, and we've got a few good ones in here. So Karen, we've got a question. Can you put pet rat poop in your compost heap?
Yes, I think Sarah Lynn posted a comment there that's a good question. Those we had hamsters for a while in our house, and that is some of the material that you can add. Any of that bedding is totally fine, and it's more, as long as your animals are herbivores, you can add their if they're just plant eaters, then you can add their material into your compost bin. And it's great.
Maybe don't clean out the litter box for the cat,
no cat,
or
no cat
dog
litter,
poop.
no dog poop. No.
No.
Yeah, that's safely in your trash can. But for the rats and rabbits and guinea pigs, all those out there, they can contribute to the compost gold as well. So great.
Yep. And
let's see.
I noticed Sarah Lynn posted that fall leaves are brown material, and that's a good point too. So if you rake your leaves at all in the fall or mulch them up, even you can even save them for some of that material to add later and mix it in with the green stuff.
I have a trick along those lines. I don't know, can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What I do, believe it or not, in the fall, when the neighbors set out their leaves for municipal pickup, I swipe a bunch of bags and hide them in the backyard. And then if my compost pile has frozen because it's in the dead of winter and it's really cold, then I can put the kitchen scraps on top and cover it up with these leaves that are in these paper bags and keep on marching. They probably think I'm really weird, but it's okay.
That's not the only reason, Sarah. Said with love. No, but that's a great tip. That really is. I heard you say earlier, that Kara, that you're a lazy composter. It didn't look lazy to me. It looked like a beautifully maintained compost bin, but I will admit to being a lazy composter. Mm-hmm. And I'll also say I do some container plantings on my back patio. So I often will have, some herbs, maybe even some tomatoes I'll put in pots over the summer if I don't have space out in the garden, or I let my raised bed go fallow a few years. So at the end of the season, when those plants all die back and get cut, I just dump the soil from my pots into my compost bin and work that in, and that helps add, sometimes that makes up for some of the brown that I haven't had all summer long. So balances that out too. So it's kind of my cheat of adding a little bit of dirt back in. But then that's great soil then for me to put in my raised beds come the next spring. So that's my cheat. Let's see, Cindy, we have a question about maple trees. Sarah Lynn, you were wondering if they should be mulched any differently because their roots are closer to the surface.
There are, that's a great question too. Maples probably should not be mulched unless you're using just recycled chips, wood chips, not like fine mulch. Mm-hmm. It is a really good question. So either use the coarse chips, just a couple of inches, no more, or just let it go. Don't mulch around your maples.
Because I've always heard those roots have to breathe, and I thought it was kind of an odd concept, hence the question. But well, your answer reinforces that idea.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just the same as compost. I mean, root systems need oxygen, and you've got to have those air spaces. And if you're piling too much fine mulch up around your trees, you're going to limit that oxygen exchange. So it's a really good point. And I know some people can't get used to the idea of using just fresh off of a wood chipper truck mulch, but it really is, studies show, the best mulch to use for your trees.
I read the other day, one reason people worry about using fresh wood chips as a mulch is they've heard that will suck nitrogen out of the soil. But what this article said was, if you were burying the wood waste, yes, it would suck some nitrogen out of the soil, but when you put it on the top, you don't have to worry about that. And that clarification, I thought, really helped to make sense of it all.
Right, absolutely.
And adding a little fertilizer, nitrogen on that kind of wood chips, if you want, adds a little nitrogen and keeps the wood chips.
Yeah.
So
my LSC pledge for the day is this afternoon, I'm going to go out and pull all the mulch the previous owner piled up on the Japanese maple tree.
Good for you.
Go online and pledge it, Sarah Lynn.
Beg your pardon?
Go online and pledge it.
Will do. Thank you.
We have another question about honeysuckle in our Q&A, and I'm so glad Margaret is here because I've learned so much about honeysuckle from you, Margaret. I had a chance to see a talk that you gave a few years ago about honeysuckle and how it impacts plants in our parks, and everything from the leaves stay on longer and leaf out earliest and shade out, and then the nitrogen in the soil. So I'm not going to try to start this, but I'm so glad that you're here to answer this question about honeysuckle and whether cutting it out is a good or bad strategy. So,
well, if you have bush honeysuckle on your property, and I would advise, as you're ready, to cut it out and kill it, though, by painting the stems with something like Roundup. You're not spraying it on the soil, you're just painting the stems, and it will prevent that shrub from just coming right back, okay? Some people want to pull it out. I would not advise pulling it out if it's a big shrub, because it disturbs the soils and a whole bunch of weeds come up, including itself again from seed. So when you're ready to do it right, you can, it's just cut the stump, you know, and paint it immediately with Roundup. Particularly, well, good to do it in the fall, but you can do it anytime. And then consider planting something else there. The reason, you know, a native shrub or other plants, as long as they're not invasive, because that shrub, when it makes its fruits, the birds eat it, fly over to our native woodlands, and out comes the seeds, and it just keeps growing over and over again in like Cherokee Park or Iroquois Park, etc., in our woodlands. And when it does grow, it stifles all the trees, you know, the tree seedlings and other native plants in the forest. It's really remarkable. And the job that Olmsted Parks Conservancy has done in ridding our parks of that dreaded, horrible bush honeysuckle is amazing. But let's not make them keep working at it too hard forever, okay, by growing that shrub or letting it grow on our property. If you can manage it and get rid of it, I highly recommend you think about it, but do it, you know, when you're ready, and do it right, or it'll just grow right back within a couple of years.
well, I'm glad to hear that advice. I tried to take that in our own yard. That was our big project this past year, was when we moved in, we had this, I call it the green monster, because it was a wall of green, and everybody that came in our backyard said, oh, look at that beautiful hedgerow. And then, you know, it would bloom and it looked just beautiful, but I knew what it was. And I had learned what it was doing to our parks. And just every year, I just really wanted to get that out and get that out. And so we finally were able to do that last year. It took removing the fence, and they've clearly been there for decades and grown together. I shared the stump from one of those. It was about 20 inches across, and it was a clump that had joined in. So we had to have it all done and all at once and ground out. And it was a big job, but I have like a whole new yard now. It's a blank landscape, and I'm so excited about it. This year we're got lots of planting plans. So
include some natives in there. Yeah, it is, because then you're helping biodiversity in our, you know, all those species that need our help in our own city. You know,
yeah.
You know, like the pollinators and butterflies and things.
Every time I look at that bare space, I can pat myself on the back for it. Great. And we have some other, questions in here, some composting questions. So is it bad to add compost every year to your garden?
No.
Okay.
Is Karen still here?
I'm still here. I was gonna say I'm not an expert on all the chemistry of it, but yeah, I mix in a little bit every year and never had a problem.
You know, part of it is that compost is what we would call a slow release. And soil amendment is the proper term because it's not potent enough to be called a fertilizer if we were dealing in regulated matters. We're not, but you know, it has low nutrient content, but it releases slowly, and therefore it really can hurt your garden. So adding it every year makes good sense in my mind, because every year your garden is pulling nutrients back out. One really valuable thing about compost, if you just lay it on the surface or work it in the very top, is that it's going to attract worms. And when the worms start burrowing through your garden, then air and water are more able to move around too. So there's, it'd be hard to think of something bad to say about composting.
Well, speaking of worms, we also have a question. Are worm farms helpful? Does anybody do any vermiculture? Yes, Margaret.
Before maybe Karen might want to weigh in on that, I have a caution about worm farms because I studied exotic non-native earthworms that have expanded into our natural areas, and some of them from gardens, and they've been around, like the night crawler is not native to Kentucky. Right. It's not native anywhere in the U.S. It's from Eurasia. A lot of them are Eurasian. So before you start a worm farm, and people usually buy them, please do a little online research and asking that you're not bringing in worms that are non-native and can make it through our winters, because then they escape from your property. And that's how they got around the forests in North America. So, and they really changed the forests for in lots of different ways that aren't good. So just do a little research about the worm species that you're bringing into your property and make sure they're not invasive.
Margaret, on that point, I've always heard that it's a good idea to use red wiggler worms because they cannot overwinter here. Now, with climate change, that may change too, but that's what I've always used. And, one solution to it is generally the people who are doing worm composting or vermicomposting, as it's called, are the people who don't have a yard and can't do an outdoor compost bin. Those people oftentimes don't have a place to put compost but for their house plants. So if you're doing worm composting indoors and you're putting the worm castings, also known as poop, onto your houseplants, my guess is that's a fairly safe approach. Would you agree?
But then what do people do with the waste?
Yeah, good argument. Good argument.
So coming
just be careful. Just be careful about it.
Close to the end of our time, but we've got a couple more questions that I think are going to be some great ones for discussion to end with on some plant suggestions. So first of all, I'd like to ask, Margaret, someone asked, where are some places one can buy the plants in your garden? Because we know we don't want people going out and digging them up from our native spaces. So where can people go buy native plants?
For buying them, there are at least two places locally. One is right on Logan Street. It's the Idlewild Butterfly Farm on Logan. And you can order, some of the plants they have are coming from Ironweed Nursery, and you can order them online, and they have curbside delivery. Now, you will also have a much broader selection if you go to Drop Seed Nursery, which is in Oldham County and in Goshen, and that's Margaret Shea's nursery. And she's got just a beautiful website where you can view the plants, learn about what conditions they need for growth, and then do online ordering as well. And she'll do curbside, I understand now, as well. So Drop Seed Nursery in Goshen, Kentucky, and Idlewild, a butterfly farm on Logan Street in Louisville, are two good places to buy them. Now, you can also, once you have, you can go to Wild Ones Louisville group on Facebook, if you're on there, and start asking questions. We organized, at least last year, how we're gonna maybe do this year, I don't know, because of COVID-19. But we do plant swaps and seed swaps. So that's another way to get plants from people who are into native plants. So that's Wild Ones Louisville group on Facebook. If you go to that and ask questions, we'll be, probably organizing something that's safe at a distance this year. That's another way to get plants.
The Wild Ones Facebook page is linked on our Green Convene webpage, so you can find that resource there. Also, and Unfortunately, this time of year, we would normally be enjoying lots of different types of plant sales. And I know the Louisville Nature Center has a plant sale, and they often have many, many native plants there for sale. The Udell Botanical Gardens also does a plant sale where many of the plants that they offer are natives. Unfortunately, this year, those things have had to go to the wayside, but it's something to watch for in the future. So I wanted to save this one for last and just see what our panel has to say about some recommendations for easy, so some low maintenance, low care flowers to plant by seed for a new butterfly garden.
Well, can I jump in?
Please.
It depends on how much sun you have. So always, if I'm going to assume that you have at least 6 hours of sunlight for this answer, and several of them are the purple coneflower. Okay, that'll come up. Now, that's a native. Here's a non-native, but it's not invasive. Zinnias. Zinnias are fantastic. They'll bloom late summer though. For native seeds, there are others listed actually. Some of them you have to plant now and they won't come up till next spring though. They need overwintering. But those are two that come to mind that will give you something, in a year or two. Zinnias, certainly the annuals, are not native, but good.
We've had really good luck with planting milkweed by seed.
It'll take a couple of years before no.
Yeah.
Something simple and easy too is like dill and parsley. I mean, those are really good plants for the larva. And again, those are really easy, pop right up annuals.
Yeah, and leafy fennel is also good for the eastern swallowtail butterflies, caterpillars to be, specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Those are some wonderful suggestions. I want to point out that for folks going to the Grow More Mow Less Facebook page, Bradley often does some different giveaways there, and sometimes it's t-shirts, but sometimes it's purple coneflower seed packets. So that's that's the kind of mascot flower of the Grow More Mow Less program. So that's another reason to go visit and like that Facebook page. My day job hat is with the Air Pollution Control District, so I'll always end on a note about Grow More Mow Less and Lawn Care for Cleaner Air resources. But I actually just want to end with a thank you to everyone today. This was a really fun topic and some really good information. As we've been preparing this, I've learned something every time we've gotten this group of people together. And so it's been really interesting, and I'm excited to put some of these ideas to practice in my own yard. So again, just thank you for coming out. Please go support LSC, support the Louisville Climate Action Network, support Trees Louisville, and your Grow More Mow Less and Lawn Care for Cleaner Air programs, and go have some fun out in the yard. It's actually up to like 64 degrees out there today, I think. So, had a cold start, but we can get out there and enjoy a little sunshine. Sarah Lynn, would you like to close?
Yeah, I wanted to add that if folks found the information exchanged in the chat box useful to them, you can pop it up, and in the lower right-hand corner, there's a little box with 3 dots. You can click there and save that thread to your computer and then go back and refer to it. And beyond all that, I really appreciate all the people who showed up, because it was an incentive for me to figure out how to do some of this stuff.
For all of us.
Maybe I'll get it next time.
Okay, we're living and learning together, y'all. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. On behalf of LSC and LCAN, have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Bye.